The scene begins with a man running through an alley, dark. He looked anxious and scared. When he stopped, he looked back, thinking he might have escaped, but suddenly someone put a knife to his neck. The man offered money to the killer in exchange for his life, but the next second, the killer slit his throat. The next morning, a young student was heading to school, looking tired. His name was Isekai. He yawned, and thought that after working all night, it really sucked to have to go to class. He worked as an assassin. Upon entering his classroom, the other students began whispering among themselves. A boy named Mitsusuji greeted him with a big smile. He was the ace of the soccer club and the class president. Kai returned the greeting coldly and sat at his desk. Meanwhile, a girl named Nagasiria saw everything and commented that Kai was rude as always. She was a fashionable girl who stood out among the others. She approached Sugi and said seriously that there was no reason to greet someone like Kai. Sugi defended him, saying maybe he was tired. That's why he was so cold. Suddenly, another student entered the classroom, and upon seeing him, Ria commented that someone even ruder had just arrived. The new student's name was Arasizen Suke, the leader of a notorious local gang. Some students greeted him, but when he saw Kai sleeping, instead of greeting him, he went to his desk and shouted for him to get up. He reached out to grab him, but Kai grabbed his hand before he could react, saying he was sleepy and asking what he wanted from him. Then he let go of his hand and called him a weirdo. Suddenly, another student named Kenshin Rin asked them to be quiet. She was beautiful and talented both in martial arts and literature. She was the cold and distant main beauty of the school. Arashi confronted her, but was interrupted by another girl, Azumoto M., a serious student of the disciplinary committee who really cared about order. Seeing that she was ready to face Arashi, a boy named Narumi Yosha told her that Arashi would knock her out with one punch. Josiah was a superficial and frivolous boy. Soon everyone returned to their seats. This was the first-year class of Simso High School, and it was simply another normal day in a classroom full of trouble. Kai kept his head down, when suddenly he felt something. A strange sensation coming from beneath Sugi's feet. A bright blue light began to emanate from the floor, and a magic circle appeared. Soon everyone in the class realized, confused and surprised. The magic circle grew until it covered the entire classroom floor. Sugi told everyone to leave the room, but Kai knew they wouldn't make it in time. The bright light blinded everyone. They were teleported to what looked like an old castle. Everyone was unconscious on the floor, and Kai was the first to regain consciousness. He noticed the building was made of stone, with several large columns to take cover behind, and only one visible exit. Soon the other students also began to wake up. Everyone was panicking, but Sugi calmed them down, and Kai felt relieved to see that Sugi was someone capable of keeping the group composed. Arashi stood up and said they couldn't waste time. He told his two henchmen to follow him. Kai stopped him and said he could hear footsteps approaching from the other side of the door. Kai felt a man and a woman were coming. Soon the door opened, and a girl and an old man entered. Both looked like they were from medieval times, like a knight and a princess, and wore unusual, old clothes with capes. The girl greeted the students, saying they were impressive and called them hero candidates. The students were surprised to see her. Kai analyzed both and concluded that the man had the physique of a swordsman and was also on guard. As for the girl, he noticed she had light muscles, but overall seemed quite normal to him. The girl introduced herself as Leonora, the Archbishop of the Holy Kingdom of Dagest, and the man accompanying her was Gas, a knight and her protector. Now yes. He told him that he had never heard of that country and asked if he was joking with them. The girl replied that she was certainly not joking, suggested a step forward, and explained that they were there suddenly, and that was why they were somewhat tense. The girl began to explain everything to them. She said they had been summoned to a parallel world as the last hope of humanity to defeat the evil Demon King. They were the hero candidates of that parallel world. The students found it hard to believe such a thing. Gas told Arashi to watch his tongue when speaking to the kingdom's saint. Arashi was unfazed by this, which made Gas draw his sword, but Leonora calmed him down. Arashi lunged at Gas and Kai was surprised by her bravery. But before Arashi could attack him, Gas brandished his sword and made a small cut on her head. His attack was so fast that no one saw it coming. Leonora apologized for the aggression and said she would explain everything in detail, but for that, everyone had to be silent and listen to her. Her attitude changed from calm to intimidating. She explained that due to the Demon King's invasion, humanity in that world was on the brink of extinction. The country of Dagis was still resisting, but they no longer had the power to completely stop the invasion. Kai thought the story was quite common. Leonora continued saying that they were humanity's last hope. Upon hearing that, the students responded that they couldn't do it, since they had never fought before. Some girls were already crying. Gaz said that although it sounded impossible, they would have to try since there was no way to return to their world unless they defeated the Demon King. The students were even more shocked to hear this. Kai knew he was just saying it to motivate them. He thought that people who had always lived in peace couldn't start killing out of nowhere. experience and talent were needed for that. Erixie got up with blood on her head and cursed them for giving orders, adding that she hated people like them. Gas noticed that Araxie's spirit was still intact and wondered if she could be a useful warrior. Then he raised his sword, determined to kill her as a possible threat. But before he could do anything, he saw that Leonora was healing Erixie's wound. She explained that the power she was using was called the System and that it had been granted to them by their gods. She simplified it by saying it was like the magic of their world. Kai noticed that she knew their culture and wondered if she had summoned people from their world before. Leonora walked towards Sugi, while saying that this power was the reason she had summoned them. She raised her hands and Sugi's wrist began to glow. Soon, Sugi had a sword of light in his hand. She explained that they could use the system's power and awaken their innate divine protection abilities. She said she knew it was a selfish request to have brought them, and now not let them go. But she asked them to lend her their power. Sugi replied that no matter how much power they gave them, they still couldn't fight immediately. She answered that, indeed, they would be trained and that during their training they would be cared for. Sugi took control of the situation and told his companions that he knew they were afraid. But the first thing they needed was information and protection. He told them that for now they should listen to what Leonora and Gas had to say, and the companions agreed with him. When Leonora saw that everyone was willing to cooperate, she began granting them her divine powers. Mueta received telekinesis, Arasio obtained explosion powers, Reina received fire powers, Josiah received wind powers, and others also received different and surprising powers. Leonora asked if anyone else was left and Kai raised his hand. She also granted him her power, and Kai noticed that his field of vision was changing. As soon as he finished receiving his power, he could read Leonora's stats. His eye color changed to red, and Leonora told him that he had received the power of judgment, which was quite rare. That power would allow him to. Viewing the statistics and details of his targets tested his power on himself, and he was able to see his own statistics. Araxie also tested his powers and mocked Kai, saying he had only gained a new eye color. Kai noticed that the students were starting to act arrogant. They didn't even have enough information about that world, and their powers were borrowed. They could be taken away at any moment, but he was calm, since he had many other ways to kill if necessary. After everyone received their powers, Leonora told them to rest in the afternoon. The candidates and the heroes were taken to their personal rooms. Kai escaped through the window in search of more information. Outside, the guards patrolled and talked among themselves about how weak the candidates seemed. They mocked, saying those kids were the chosen ones to defeat the Demon King. One of them said that surely the Saint knew something they didn't. Kale overheard their entire conversation, used his judgment power to see the statistics of one of the guards, and noticed he only knew how to use a sword. Then he walked away in search of more information. He had also learned about the city's structure, which was a fortified city. He wanted to enter the inner castle, but the gates were heavily guarded, so it was difficult to sneak in. He decided not to rush and come back another day. Meanwhile, in an open field, Reina was looking for a good spot with her two henchmen. They were there to practice their new powers. They began to conjure their respective elements and observe them, since Reina was curious to learn more about that divine protection thing. Kaye was hiding among some bushes, spying on them, when suddenly he felt a strange sensation. The girls also heard a strange noise coming from the bushes. It was a giant lizard-like creature that had been attracted by the girls' magic. Kai quickly used his power to see the monster's statistics, and was surprised to see they were overwhelming. Soon the monster roared and started chasing the girls. Kai concluded the lizard was strong and aggressive, but only ran in a straight line and lacked intelligence. He threw a knife, and the knife managed to penetrate its thick skin. Meanwhile, Ren was trampled and fell to the ground. The monster had caught her, and was about to step on her when suddenly it stopped. When the girls looked around, they saw a knife stuck in the monster's head, and it was bleeding. They wondered if someone had saved her, but they decided not to stay any longer, and left. Kai had no reason to save them, but his conscience wouldn't let him ignore the situation. He thought to himself that things were not going to be easy there. If creatures like that roamed freely, he approached the monster's body to pick up his knife. When suddenly, he felt someone nearby. He hid behind in the monster's body and looked around but saw no one. He returned to his room to avoid trouble. After he left, a person came out from behind a wall covered with a cloak, so it was impossible to see their face. That person crushed the monster's head, causing its eyes to pop out. Murmured to himself that he was disappointed to see how useless and weak the hero candidates were, but that Kalia fell just like him the next morning. Gas brought the dead monster's body before the hero candidates, who were shocked to see something like that. Gas explained that the monster was found dead the night before, near the royal capital. He continued, saying that the demon king had driven the monsters into a frenzy, and as a result, they craved human flesh. He told the candidates, to heroes, that they would have to face creatures like that. Gas asked, Steady, an investigator? To heroes who would have to face creatures like that, Gas, a researcher, asked Steady if he had found anything strange in the monster, and he replied that there were traces of witchcraft, probably used by a mid-level or higher demon. He said that maybe they were exploring to assess the power of the new hero candidates. Kai wondered if sorcery was different from magic. Since it was a new word used by the investigator, Yusugi asked if that meant that the monster was being controlled by a demon. Steady explained that powerful demons can use servitude spells and therefore control weaker monsters. Gas dragged Steady away even though he wanted to keep explaining. Kai considered Steady very helpful for gathering information and thought he could use his help. Suddenly, he realized that the true identity of those eyes he felt the night before was that of a demon. The demon was skillful since Kai had barely noticed him. He thought the demon could be among them at that very moment. Suddenly, he felt someone watching him, so he told Gas that anyway, they couldn't return to their world without killing the Demon King, and that he didn't plan to stay in that world for long. The other students also agreed with him. Kai thought the best thing was for them to quickly learn the weight of the truth. Suddenly, Leonora entered and told them not to be afraid, that they simply didn't know how to use their powers yet. All they needed was training. Since they came from another world, their growth rate would be different from that of the people there. Thus, a week passed since the students began their training. Caillou was reading books in the library and could already understand every letter of the new language. He thought it was already quite strange that they could communicate from the start. His judgment power was useless for combat, so he was excluded from training, but he was allowed access to the library. He couldn't find many books about the history and culture of that world, not even about the demons. The 5 strongest among them were Narumi, the wind controller, Arashi with his explosion powers, Kineki with his telekinesis, Azumoto with the power of earth, Reina with her fire powers. However, there was another person with a clearly extraordinary growth rate. Suji became stronger than the people he learned from Ottav.com. Fencing. Kai used his judgment power and noticed that all his stats were above rank B when just last week they were below rank D. Suddenly, 2 boys approached Kai and began mocking him. He noticed that even the others looked down on him. They were becoming arrogant since they received their new powers. One of the boys tried to intimidate him, but Kai threw him to the ground with a stealthy move. Meanwhile, Leonora and Gas arrived at the training field. She announced that since everyone had grown faster than she had imagined, she had decided to advance her plans. Narumi asked if she planned to send them to fight the Demon King, but she denied it, saying that now she wanted them to practice fighting monsters. Everyone got nervous upon hearing that. The next day, Gas and Leonora took all the hero candidates to the center of a forest. Gas explained that they were there for combat exercises. It was a place full of obstacles, so they couldn't move freely in large groups. That's why they were going to be divided into teams of 2 to 3 people. Upon hearing this, all the candidates formed their own groups, leaving Kai and Kinsaki alone, who had no choice but to form a team together. Kai thought she had a confident and apathetic personality, and that she was also proud. She caught him staring at her. Meanwhile, Leonora announced that since it was a special occasion, the team that defeated the most monsters would receive a surprise reward. Soon the combat exercises began. On the way, Kinsaki told Kai that his powers were superior to everyone else's, so he didn't need him to do anything. He asked him not to get in his way. Kai accepted the proposal and said he would leave everything in his hands. Seeing that, she asked if he had no pride. He perceived that there were 4 hidden entities around him. One of the monsters lunged at them, and Kinsaki used her powers. Her ability was called Domination, and it was an ability that forced the target to obey the user's orders. She ordered the goblin to bow, and the goblin obeyed exactly as commanded. She looked visibly tired after a few minutes. She explained that she got exhausted when using her powers for a long time because they consumed a large amount of mana. He asked her to kill the goblin because another monster was about to attack, but she hesitated a bit because the monster seemed somewhat human to her. Kayla made her see reason, saying it was still a monster that had tried to attack him. He picked up a stone and concluded that she was nothing more than a Japanese student, naive too, used to peace. She was playing with the stone, when suddenly the other 3 goblins appeared. She ordered them to bow as well, and asked Kai to help her instead of standing still. Kai replied that she herself had asked him not to get involved. She sighed and ordered the goblins to twist their own necks, which killed them. Kai was surprised to see she could impose such extreme orders, to which she responded that the harder the order, the lower the chance of success. She felt disgusted seeing the goblins' corpses, but Kayla comforted her with wise words. She asked how he could stay so calm when he didn't even have powers. He told her not to worry about that. That was precisely his strength. He asked if she wanted to go back if she was too scared of all this, but she rejected the idea proudly. Kai knew she was only trying to seem brave, but admitted she wasn't so bad after all. Meanwhile, Narumi and Azumoto were fleeing from a monster that was too strong for them, but running away was not an option, so they decided to attack it together using their wind and rock powers. They threw a huge rock at it, but it barely caused a scratch. They were defenseless and didn't know what to do next. Kinsaki wanted to return to her world since she still hadn't paid the debt to her grandfather for raising her. She really wanted to show him how much she had grown. She was lost in her thoughts when Kai asked if she wanted to continue. Since they could get lost, both started arguing, and she wondered why Kai was so mysterious and stubborn. They were joking, when suddenly, they heard a loud noise. Kensaki recognized the voice. It was Asamoto. Kai asked what they should do, and she answered that obviously they should help her. Meanwhile, Asamoto was thrown through the air by the monster and was injured, bleeding. She asked Narumi to escape, but it was already too late. The monster was also going to attack him. Kensaki used her powers and ordered the monster to stop. Narumi thanked her, and she said the monster was too strong, and she couldn't hold it back for long. Kai asked Narumi if Asamoto was still alive, to which she replied yes, but she was badly hurt. Kyle asked to carry her on his back and get away from there. Although Narumi hesitated to leave her, seeing Asamoto's condition, she finally left. When they left, Kai used his power to see the monster's stats, and was surprised to see they were quite high, especially its defense. He knew his attacks wouldn't do much damage. Also, he noticed it was a mutant and wondered what kind of creature it exactly was. Kensaki shouted that she couldn't hold on any longer, and he told her she had already bought enough time, and that they should run too. She agreed, but couldn't move her legs. She had used all her energy trying to stop the monster. Seeing how serious the situation was, Kai took out a smoke grenade and activated it. This gave him time to take Kensaki in his arms and hide. She blushed a little being carried like that and asked what that smoke was. He explained it was a smoke grenade he had made while everyone was training. He was actually lying, since he had brought some equipment with him before being summoned. Since it wasn't much, he didn't want to use it unnecessarily. They were basic assassin equipment. Kensaki apologized to him, since she was the one who insisted on going to save the others and ended up being saved. Kyle asked her not to apologize, that instead he could thank her again after that. They started joking among themselves. She said they should flee, but he replied that there was no need. Both saw Suji and the others arrive at the place, and without wasting time, Suji attacked the bear for having hurt his friends. Suji quickly lunged at the monster and injured its hand. Rina intervened and used her fire powers against the monster, but it didn't seem to affect it much. She only managed to slow it down. They attacked the monster again without Caesar, while someone watched them from a distance. It was a veteran assassin demon called Delpus. Delpus smiled maliciously and said to himself that the armored monster could not defeat the hero candidates due to their rapid growth. He liked how calm they remained, especially Suji. It was supposed to be just a reconnaissance mission, but he decided it was time to change the plans. He was going to finish them off right then. Meanwhile, Suji and the others managed to defeat the monster. Delpus smiled and prepared to attack them, but suddenly he stopped upon feeling a dagger at his neck. It was Kai. Delpus was stunned to be caught like that. He was nervous and wondered how Kai had managed to get close unnoticed. He needed a quick way to escape. Kai cut his legs and threw him to the ground. He asked him not to make noise since he didn't want Suji and the others to notice him. Kyle said that if he answered some questions, he would let him go. Delpus was not willing to surrender, but he had no other choice since Kai had the advantage. Kai wondered if he was the same one who was watching him. The other night he said he knew that they were watching and had planned to let Suji and the others fight to lure him. Before he could continue, Kai said he needed information, since they hadn't been in that world long, and he would have to tell him everything. He asked. Delpus smiled arrogantly and refused, but Kai also cut his hands and told him it would be easier if he simply cooperated. Delpus told him not to underestimate him, and after saying that he consumed a poison he carried with him, dying instantly. Kai understood that the Demon King's army would not be easy to face. Suddenly Kensaki arrived at him and was surprised to see the corpse nearby. Kai asked since when he had been watching him, and she replied that since the subject was already on the ground. He explained that the dead demon was an assassin from the Demon King's army, and that the previous monster was simply one of his pawns. He also revealed that the lizard that appeared in the past was also his doing. Kensaki was scared to know that the Demon King was trying to kill the hero candidates. She asked how he noticed the assassin's presence when no one else did. Kai thought there was no reason to hide it, and confessed that his family was involved in the assassination business, so he could smell that he was from the same guild. Kensaki was shocked by that revelation. He told her it was up to her if she wanted to believe him or not, and also asked her not to say anything about the body since the other candidates were already quite upset about Asamoto's condition. She agreed, and said she didn't know he cared so much about them, to which he replied that simply they were not used to fighting like him. All the hero candidates gathered around Asamoto, who was seriously injured and lying on the ground. A student named Ano, who had healing powers, sat beside her and began to heal her with her ability. Everyone was amazed to see her power. Ano announced that Asamoto would be healed in approximately an hour. The hero candidates began to praise Suji for having defeated the monster. Leonora and Wasa suddenly appeared at the scene, and the candidates asked them where they had been all that time and why they hadn't helped them when they needed it most, as he explained that he had been there the whole time, watching them, and that it wouldn't be good practice if he rescued them every time. Suji said the situation was serious, and that Asamoto could even lose his life, to which Gas responded that risking life was a natural part of practical military training. That was the kind of battle they would face from now on and therefore should not make weak complaints. Sugi questioned him, saying that if the area only had weak monsters, how then had the armored monster appeared? Leonora responded that surely it was the demon assassin's fault since armored monsters shouldn't be in that zone. Gas and Leonora decided to strengthen their defenses, unaware that Kai had already killed the assassin. Leonora also added that they should increase the level of training since at the current level, everyone would die. Everyone was frightened to hear that, and Sugi tried to reason with her. But she replied that getting stronger was the only way to survive. Now, he couldn't stand being ordered around and stepped forward to confront Leonora. But Gas stopped him and then said that they were all just pawns of Leonora, and should not think they could disobey her orders. The situation grew tense and Sugi intervened to calm Arashi, saying they had no choice but to obey them. Gas was impressed by Sugi and told the candidates not to worry since they were important pawns for the country and would not be harmed as long as they behaved properly. Still, Arashi was not satisfied and attacked Gas with his explosive power, but Gas dodged quickly and struck him so hard that Arashi fell to the ground. Gas said they were all weak and that from the next day, things would only get harder. Then he left with Leonora. Now, Sugi got up with a bloodied face and swore to kill Gas the next day. Steady, the investigator, was in charge of the training. After a brief conversation about the previous day, he said they were going to fight monsters in his research facility. Inside the place there were all kinds of monsters locked up since he raised them for his experiments. Soon the exercise began and the hero candidates were forced to fight the monsters. Kai noticed that everyone was surprisingly calm despite being forced to fight. Sugi told Steady that the monsters were too strong for the candidates, but Steady replied that Leonora had asked him to be very strict with everyone, and so he could not and would not soften the training. He also added that candidates with powers like theirs should not be losing placement from the start. He also said that the most important thing was willpower. Sugi asked if that would really make a difference, and he replied that if done correctly, they could increase the level of their powers and even obtain new derivations of them. Kai joined the conversation and told Sugi that according to his judgment power, he could see that Sugi had developed a new power. Sugi was surprised to hear that and asked Steady if he could test it. Steady was enthusiastic to see the power, so he gave permission. Sugi used his new power, and in an instant cut off the monster's hand and head with a clean slash. Kai knew that now Sugi would have no problems with an armored monster. He wondered if his own judgment power had also leveled up. Kai noticed that someone else had also received a new power, Arashi, but decided not to tell him that same night. Arashi planned to kill Gas, tie up Leonora, and force her to say how to return to their real world. Some other candidates supported him and also wanted to leave as soon as possible. Arashi asked Narumi to join, since they would have better chances, and he knew Narumi was also fed up with that world. Narumi hesitated, but in the end decided to join them the next day. Sugi was training and Kai approached him, telling him he was working very hard. Sugi replied that he was still weak and needed to improve, to which Kai replied that with his current level he could defeat half of the knights in that world. Sugi said it was not enough since he still couldn't beat Gas, needed more power to protect everyone. Kai asked him what he thought of Leonora and Gas, and Sugi replied that he knew they were using them as pawns in their war, but he also knew they wouldn't harm them. Kai asked him if that meant he would risk his life until the Demon King was defeated. Sugi nodded and said he had already made a decision. He would be the only one who would have to fight. He would become the hero of the country, defeat the Demon King, and try to negotiate to ensure that everyone else could live safely in exchange. Kai asked if he thought Leonora would allow it, and just then she and Gas entered. She told Steady that she would be in charge of the candidates' training. While she was absent, Steady was pleased to fulfill his part, and then she and Gas left later. While they walked, Gas asked if she was sure she had made the right decision. She asked what made him think that he asked her to stop beating around the bush and be direct, added that now she was indeed plotting something, and she agreed, saying it could be a rebellion against them. He asked what her next move would be, and she replied that she was curious to see what they would do. Gas was a little worried about the rebellion since, after all, they were hero candidates and had powers, so it could be disastrous for them. But Leonora remained calm as she knew they could never defeat her. She added that they should establish a hierarchy to crush the rebellion and break their fangs once and for all. She also told him she had noticed other suspicious things, but for now she would let them pass. That night, Kale was fighting a monster and killed it. Just like the monster from the first night, it only took him 13 seconds. And when he used his judgment power on himself, he noticed he had leveled up. Suddenly, another monster attacked him, but this one was tougher and his blades couldn't pierce it. It was the perfect moment to test his new ability. He could detect the target's weak point. Upon finding it, he killed the monster in the blink of an eye. It wasn't a bad skill, but he knew he needed more to survive in that world. He needed to become even stronger. More monsters attacked him and he defeated them easily. He needed a stronger test subject to measure his skill. He heard human footsteps and saw Kansaki. He asked what she was doing there so late at night. She said she was looking for him. Because he wasn't in the dormitory, he asked her to leave. Since the forest was a dangerous place at night, he was used to fighting at night, but she wasn't. She interrupted him and asked what he was doing there. He said he was testing his new powers. She asked what his new power was, but he started joking with her. Then she confessed she was worried about him. When confronted, she blushed and began making excuses. They were talking when suddenly, they saw smoke in the distance. It was fire. His dormitory was on fire. Both ran back and saw the other candidates fighting monsters. Narumi said she was glad to see him. She told that when she woke up, she saw the fire and the monsters. Kai said that had been the work of a human and that the culprit must be nearby. He asked them to search for and capture whoever had done it. Steady appeared on top of a building and said his judgment was correct. Kai said he wondered how the monsters had appeared, but now everything made sense. They were all monsters from his laboratory. He had also given them medicine to make them stronger, since before they were too weak to be useful. Kai asked what his goal was and what he gained by killing candidates. He replied that it was a direct order from above. They had told him to destroy the candidates, even if that meant losing his current position. He smiled and said he had nothing against them, but that unfortunately he had to kill them. They asked if that was an order from Leonora, but he denied it, saying, "Of course not. It was not an order from that witch," and revealed that it was actually an order from the Demon King. He was a spy for the Demon King's army. He said if he did his job well, he would be rewarded with the investigator position there. Kai also asked if he had fallen so low that the only thing that mattered to him was investigating monsters. Steady said that monsters were beyond human understanding. He ordered his monsters to attack them, and Kensaki used his powers to stop them. But it was in vain, since quickly they broke his spell and attacked her. Kai jumped to save her, which greatly impressed Steady, who was amazed by Kai's powers. Kai continued killing the other monsters, eliminating almost a dozen of them, and Steady was now furious since Kai didn't even have strong power. At first, he used his judgment power on Steady and saw that all his stats were poor, but what caught his attention most was that he also had mastered powers like Kensaki, but even stronger, and that was the reason why Kensaki's power had been nullified. Steady shook it off and used something he didn't want to use, but had no other choice. He told Kai that soon he would know what he used. Kai jumped to attack him since he didn't want to waste time, but suddenly a gigantic red dragon breathed fire at him. This was Strat's secret card. The dragon began throwing rocks at them. Kai asked Narumi to take Kensaki and leave, since the next attack was approaching. Kai used his power again to locate the dragon's weak spot, which was its neck. He tried to cut it, but his attack power was not enough to do so. Suddenly, Arashi appeared and attacked the dragon, and then began boasting about how he could hurt it, but the dragon counterattacked. Kai told Arashi they needed to take down the monster together. Arashi asked why he would need him, to which Kai replied that he could detect weak spots, but didn't have enough attack power. Arashi, being stubborn, said he didn't need a rookie's help, but they didn't have time for that, since the dragon attacked again. The dragon breathed fire at Arashi, and finally decided to join Kai. Kai explained the dragon's weak spot, which was a scale on its neck. Kai planned to distract the dragon, while Arashi attacked the weak spot. Teddy ordered the dragon to kill them. The dragon lunged at them again, and Kai distracted it, while Arashi attacked the weak spot. This knocked the dragon to the ground. The dragon was defeated, and Kai asked Steady if he had anything else since his secret card had been lost. Steady said he still had other monsters, but unfortunately, Suji and the others had already defeated them all. Steady tried to escape, but was captured by Narumi. Kai asked him to tell them everything, and he agreed easily, since he was a coward, but before he could say anything, his body turned purple, and he died. A curse was placed on him that would kill him the moment he tried to leak information. The next day, the candidates confronted Leonora when she returned, since she had been the one to leave Steady in charge. She apologized and explained that she didn't think a weak demon tamer like him could cause so much damage. The candidates were surprised to learn that she knew that Steady was a demon tamer. They asked why, if she knew he was a demon, she left him close to them. In her defense, she said she had already warned them that their training would be harder, and that what happened was just part of that. Gas accused them of not being careful enough to see a fire at night. Leonora told them that they would all visit the royal capital, soon focused on the revelation of the candidates as heroes. A public parade would be held in the royal capital, and they would present themselves as the main actors. That night, everyone left for the capital and camped in a field while eating araxi. He told his followers that there were about 30 soldiers with them, and that they really weren't that strong. He said it was time to put his plan into action. Since they could easily outnumber them, he asked one of his followers to call Narumi, and his group Street heard his speech and agreed that there were very few soldiers accompanying them, but that was only because Gas and Leonora trusted that they could defeat them on their own. He went to talk to Suji and asked if they could talk later that night. Arashi and Narumi met in the nearby forest, ready to attack the soldiers when Suji and the other candidates stood in their way to stop him. Suji said he had heard that Arashi was trying to kill Leonora and Gas, and Arashi was surprised to learn that his plan had somehow been leaked. They tried to reason with him, telling him there might be another way to do it beyond just killing him. So he told Sugi that all he did was talk and asked him if he had a plan, to which Sugi replied that he would act as a pawn and defeat the Demon King, and in return guarantee everyone's safety. Arachnito was willing to accept this deal and told him to get out of his way, but Sugi and the others were not going to let him pass since they could not agree with that point. They started fighting, and suddenly 2 soldiers arrived and told them to go to sleep since they had an early trip the next day. Araxi walked away saying he had enough of weakness and it was not worth continuing to talk to them the next day. They arrived at the royal capital and it was so crowded due to the ceremony. People on the streets were surprised to see the hero candidate, and it seemed they had a lot of faith in them in the castle. They were received by the Night Queen Sante, who asked them to rest first. All the candidates were pleased and happy to receive the royal treatment. From soft beds to hot water baths, they were also offered the best food. Kai decided to gather some more information, but there were many guards. Suddenly, he saw the knight who was showing them around. Rez was talking with his soldiers about how he found the candidates stronger than normal children their age. One of the soldiers said he was worried that he let the hero candidates enter the royal capital. Surely, it would incite those demons to take some action. The queen told them not to worry, since the candidates were strong and could handle anything. Kai had more questions, so he thought about going to town at night. He went to one of the pubs and ordered a beer and some snacks. People were talking about the hero candidates and how they looked like normal kids to them. He noticed that the people there were more afraid of the church than of the king or the nobles. He asked the bartender to tell him more since he was new to town and didn't know much. The bartender told him about the king, the demon, and the way he was attacking the kingdom. He also told him that the Demon King could even seduce humans with his overwhelming power. He also told how the followers of the Demon King had blown up a noble estate a few days before. Kai left the pub thinking that the presence of the candidates in the capital blindly was not the best. Suddenly, Kenzie approached him because she was worried about him. He explained that he was gathering information since they were in unknown territory. She, visibly worried, said she could help him, but he refused, and she didn't like his attitude after a small exchange. He finally agreed to let her help. He asked her to gather information about the royal capital. She went to gather information, and Kai also, but someone was listening to their entire conversation. The man smiled as he watched her leave. Kai finally returned to his room after an exhausting search. He found nothing important, but at least discovered the existence of a new enemy. Suddenly, he heard noises outside his room, and when he went out, he saw the other candidates gathered in the hallway. When he asked, he learned that Kansaki was missing. They hadn't noticed she was gone because she didn't share a room with anyone. When they asked him, he denied knowing anything. Suji concluded that she was not in the castle, and since it was almost dawn, they should go out to look for her. Everyone dispersed to search for her. On the street, he found her student ID dropped on the ground. As soon as he picked it up, 4 masked men attacked him, but his reaction time was so fast that he knocked down 3 of them instantly. He asked the 4th who he was, since they all seemed like poorly trained spies. The 4th spy was too stunned to flee, and Kai asked him to tell everything he knew. Meanwhile, in what seemed to be a castle, Kansaki was tied up and held captive. 2 spies were interrogating her, but she didn't answer them. They wanted to know about the hero candidates, and when they saw she wouldn't cooperate, one of the spies tore off her shirt. They didn't know it, but Kai was already inside and spying on them. He used his judgment powers and noticed they were quite weak. He couldn't believe she had been captured by such weak men. He quickly killed them. Kansaki felt embarrassed to see him in her exposed state. Kai unlocked her chains and was about to leave, when he felt someone approaching at great speed. It was the Queen and the Holy Knight, who attacked them without wasting time, but both dodged his attack. He smiled and said that he really should kill him. Besides being the Holy Knight, he was also the general of the Demon King's army. Kai said the country was near its end, since even the capital was full of enemies. Kai used his judgment and saw that Ryuz was a powerful warrior, an all-rounder. They faced off again, and Kai managed to dodge his sword, but then the Queen used fire magic, which surprised Kai somehow. He dodged the attack again, but then the Queen wrapped her sword in fire and said it was over for Kai. However, Kai quickly drew his gun and shot her directly in the center of the temple. The Queen fell to the ground and died. Kai didn't want to use his gun for something like that, since he had limited ammo, but he had no other choice. He needed to learn to fight face-to-face if he wanted to survive in that world. Kansaki was stunned to see that he carried a gun and said how terrifying it was to know that someone of their class carried a gun with them. He explained it was just standard equipment for an assassin. She thanked him, and he asked why she didn't use her domination power, to which she replied that after her hands were chained, she couldn't use her powers. Somehow they were leaving, and she told him those guys were trying to attack everyone in their class, but he already knew because while interrogating the 4th man he had captured earlier, he was told they had been ordered to kill all the hero candidates. He was the one who told him about Kensaki's location. They wanted to use her as a hostage while attacking the others. What they didn't understand was the fact that she hadn't been killed by the death curse like what happened to Steady. This meant it hadn't been the work of a demon, but that some humans were against them. It was almost dawn and Sugi found her, happy to see she was okay. Kai told everything about the Demon King's cult and how some humans were also against humanity. The problem now was that they couldn't identify which humans were their enemies like they could with monsters. This meant everyone had to be more cautious. They decided not to tell Leonora, since she would simply tell them to solve it themselves, so they ended, deciding to gather everyone and decide on a course of action. Suddenly, smoke appeared around them, and soon they were surrounded by more cult members. Everyone prepared to fight death. Not only these three, but all the other groups of candidates were also cornered by Kyle's men, of which there were 6, and their stats were obviously lower than the Queen's, but they were still strong. The 6 men jumped at them. Kensaki used her powers to stop them, and Kyle pierced their heads with sharp knives, killing them instantly. Suji was a bit stressed, seeing this, since they were humans after all. Suji tried to debate this, but Kyle interrupted, saying that at the end of the day they were enemies. One remaining cult member attacked Suji, and he tried to reason with him, but the cult members said they were only serving their master. Kensaki was ready to use her powers again, but Kyle stopped her, saying he wanted Suji to kill the man. Suji broke the man's sword and asked him to surrender if he wanted to live, but the man was too stubborn and attacked him. Suji counterattacked and cut the man's body. The man groaned and Suji wanted to leave him there to die, but Kyle told him to eliminate him right there, or else he could be a threat. Suji was reluctant, but in the end did what Kyle told him. Meanwhile, Araxi and his henchmen also defeated all the men. The last man was mercilessly killed by Araxi's power. The hostage and the others were having difficulty killing humans, and except for the hostage, the other girls were getting injured. Suddenly, Leonora appeared on the scene and asked if she should give them a passing grade. The men were enraged seeing Leonora, and she said that since they were her candidates, it was expected that she would come to help them when they were in danger. One of the men said she didn't even have her knight with her, so how would she do it? She provoked them, saying they were just a bunch of amateurs, seduced by the Demon King, and she didn't even consider them enemies in the first place. All the men jumped at her at the same time, and she used her domination power to pin them all to the ground. The men couldn't move, and the Queen said their powers were similar to Kensaki's, but Leonora asked her not to compare her powers to something like that, since her domination ability was superior in every aspect, from range to power. The Queen asked why she had saved them, to which she replied that she had mentioned giving a passing grade. Everyone thanked her for protecting them, and one of the men grabbed her dress and asked her not to ignore them and to free them. She looked down and apologized to the man for still being alive. Then she used her domination power over all the candidates and ordered them to kill the men lying on the ground. Their bodies began to move on their own, and all of them killed the men against their will. Such was Leonora's power. Kyle and Kensaki watched everything from afar, and Kensaki was amazed to see her control so many people at once. Her range and power were completely on another level. 12 hours after the attack, all the candidates gathered again in the hall. Many of them were in pretty bad shape and shocked. Narumi said she wouldn't let her go, since she had made all the candidates kill against their will. Suji blamed himself for not arriving sooner, but Kyle explained that it wouldn't have made any difference, since none of them were strong enough to resist Leonora. Kyle had perfectly understood that since the general of the demon army had been defeated, they wouldn't be able to make a move for a while. Then he asked Kensaki to accompany him. She asked the purpose, and he told her it was to find a way to deal with Leonora's domination magic. He wanted the help of someone who had powers similar to hers. Then he asked her to dominate him with her powers. Upon hearing this, she blushed and turned completely red the next day after repelling the cult members. The kingdom held a grand parade celebrating the summoning of the hero candidates. This was proof that the hero candidates had demonstrated their power. During their battle against the Demon King's cult, they were welcomed with open arms by the citizens of the royal capital. When all the candidates gathered, Leonora told them she would like them to return to the Alpha Temple City. There she explained to the others that was the name of the city they were summoned to, and thought it was under Leonora's control. She asked Leonora if she wasn't coming with them too, to which she replied she still had some matters to attend to, so she would leave them under Gas's care. The Queen said they would have liked to return, but their dormitories were burned down. The Queen noticed that one of the girls looked flushed and couldn't even answer the questions. She was too afraid of Leonora. Leonora left with a smile, and all the candidates held a grudge against her. Soon, Gas took all the candidates with him toward their destination. At night, they camped, and now, Yes and the others again ventured into the forest. Kensaki asked Kai if they were really going to do it that night, and he replied that Leonora wasn't there and all the soldiers were weaklings. So it was the best chance to kill Gas under those conditions. There was no reason for them to stop him, and he would just enjoy the show. Meanwhile, Narumi had taken Gas deep into the forest, saying she had seen a giant monster. Gas fell into her trap, Since the path led to the royal capital and a monster lurking, there was dangerous. Suddenly, Arasi attacked Gas from behind with all her power. Gas didn't expect the attack, so he took the hit and started bleeding. Arasi told him that not even his best attack could kill him. Gas was unsteady on his feet and suddenly stepped on a landmine that exploded. Arasi smiled and said it was all a trap set for him. Gas used mana to defend himself, but was still seriously injured. Gas said he was disappointed in him, as he hadn't expected to be ambushed like that. Suddenly, all the others, members of Arasi's group, surrounded the elder. Seeing the severity of the situation, Gas launched a sphere of light into the sky that acted as a distress signal. Kanaki and Kai also saw it from afar, and Kai commented on how badly the situation was handled. The sphere of light was an emergency signal, and the soldiers saw it and headed in that direction. They couldn't reach the place because Kai stood in their way and killed them all. Meanwhile, Gas was being beaten by the candidates. He could barely keep up with their powers. Soon he lost an arm and was completely covered in blood. Arasi praised him, saying he was tough for his age. Narumi informed them about the distress signal and said she was trying to buy some time. But Gas replied there was no need for that anymore. Leonora entered with her usual smile and said that Gas was completely cornered. The candidates were surprised to see her, and at the same time, Tsuji, the queen, and other candidates saw Kanzaki using her domination power to tie up some soldiers. She told them she was following orders, but they didn't believe it, since they knew she wasn't the type of person to follow someone's orders. Kalye entered and told them she was following his orders. Tsuji was stunned again upon hearing that. He killed the guards. He explained that now, yes, he had his hands full fighting Gas, so he took care of the guards. Tsuji and the others understood everything. Now Tsuji asked if he had allied with Arasi, to which he replied he was just doing what he wanted to do. Kyles said they should be looking for Arasi instead of bothering him. Tsuji and the others went to look for Araki and the others. Leonora told Gas that he was losing and he accepted it, saying he couldn't fight his old age. After all, Arasi said that after everything that had happened, one of the candidates was not going to hide and run away, asked her if she wasn't the one controlling them, to which Leonora responded that there were also other conditions that had to be met. If they had a large reserve of mana to resist, it would be less effective. But for those who always depended on their powers and were not used to controlling their mana, it was easy for her to control everyone, so she called her a coward and challenged her, saying she wouldn't be able to face them directly. She smiled and said she would take care of them personally. She added that she would break their fangs. Arashi jumped at her, and she quickly summoned a huge piece of rock, throwing it through the air, then manipulated other elements like fire, water, and air to defeat the other candidates. Narumi arrived, picked up Arashi, and flew through the sky. Suddenly, Tsuji and the other candidates also arrived. He told Arashi to stop the fight and asked what he would gain from it. Arashi told him to stop it with his strength if he wanted, that he hated his pacifist methods. Tsuji asked the others if they thought the same, and Reina stood up and said she supported Arashi. Leonora laughed and said they were still fighting among themselves. She added that at that point they were responsible for starting a rebellion. Then she asked if they expected her to forgive them even if they stopped the rebellion at that moment. Then she conjured a huge cyclone and hurt them all. Tsuji tensed seeing everyone injured, but now he told her to calm down and said that if she wanted to protect everyone, she would have to resolve it or else everyone would be dead. Tsuji understood the situation since there was no other option. He prepared to fight, and so did Rihan and the others. Leonora said she would show them the difference between her and them. Meanwhile, not far away, Kensaki asked Kai what he should do. He told him that once Leonora used her magic to enslave them, he would join the fight. Until then, they should trust the other candidates. The candidates were ready to fight. Leonora and Gas managed to get up, and he said he was weak, but still wanted to fight for her. Leonora healed all his wounds, and he was better than ever to fight. The candidates were scared since they had done so much to corner Gas, but now he was back. Reina told them their number had increased, so they would compensate for that. Leonora told them they could attack her anytime they wanted. For her, the battle would be a test for them. She added that if they couldn't win against her, they couldn't be heroes. After all, the fight soon began, and Gas noticed it was difficult to fight Tsuji with his magic sword. Leonora used water magic to attack Tsuji, but Reina nullified it. Although Tsuji was still injured by the attack, they attacked Leonora, but none of the attacks even managed to touch her. Meanwhile, Kai was hiding in the shadows and used his judgment to review Leonora's stats. He noticed that although she was a powerful mage, her defense was weak. A good physical attack would be enough, but Gas was in his way now. He asked Sugi to leave Gas to him and go defeat Leonora. However, Sugi had a problem. His magic couldn't touch her either. A candidate gave him a steel sword, and Leonora commented that now he seemed ready for combat. Finally, the other candidates couldn't help Tsuji, since their powers wouldn't work on her, and they couldn't help Arashi either, since he was fighting at close range. Now he could face Gas face to face, because although he had been healed, his stamina was still low, but he couldn't use his explosive power either. So again, The situation was balanced. Leonora used ranged attacks against Suji to prevent him from getting close to her with his sword. There had to be something he could do to get close and defeat her, but he didn't know what it was. Leonora smiled and said it was expected from Suji since there were very few people in the country who could dodge her attacks. It was still a one-sided battle. Since not being close enough to her, he couldn't even rely on the other candidates. Suji rushed towards her at full speed and nullified her wind attacks. She used earth and fire attacks as well, but he dodged them. She noticed he was unconsciously using magic as armor, which meant he was growing in such a short period of time. She was a little scared of him, but managed to throw him away with her powers. Meanwhile, Araxi could no longer rely on his powers and wondered what he could do to defeat Gas. Gas cut his abdomen with a single blow. Araxi got angry at himself for not being able to defeat an old man. He knelt on the ground and Gas told him this was all he could do, without his powers now. He told him he was destined to be strong, and then hit him so hard the old man fell to the ground, bleeding again, which made him the victor. Meanwhile, Suji thought he had to win or his friends would have to suffer. He stood up, and a threatening aura surrounded him. Leonora noticed his amazing resistance, but she was calm since she knew he couldn't get close to her. She was wrong because in the blink of an eye, Suji was right in front of her and managed to cut off her hand. It was impossible, according to her, but she had no time to think, since now Suji was right behind her. She managed to use her water powers to push him away. Somehow she understood that he had acquired instant movement powers. He used his new power again, and was only 1 centimeter away from cutting her neck when suddenly she ordered him to kneel. He couldn't move and she smiled, saying she didn't want to use it but had no other choice. Kai noticed that he had finally used his secret card and asked Kensaki to move. Leonora smiled maliciously and said she didn't expect to have to use enslavement magic, but Suji forced her to do it. He was lying at her feet like a statue. Other candidates ran to save Suji, but Leonora ordered them not to move, and everyone stopped on the way. Leonora said everyone had done a good job and therefore she would give them a passing grade. She added that she didn't expect Gas to lose, but after all, he was only a knight and could be replaced as long as she controlled them. There would be no problem. The candidates were losing hope, and if they had no countermeasures against the attacker, they would surely lose. She told everyone that the reason she allowed them to summon the candidates was so that when the time came, she could control them freely. Otherwise, they would become threats. Suddenly, 3 knives attacked her from behind, but she easily dodged them and said she knew he had been hiding all along. It was Kai. And he responded that he was surprised she paid attention to someone as ordinary as him. She said from the beginning there was something strange about him. She commented she was disappointed in him because she didn't expect him to go out on such a lost battle. She ordered him not to move, and he also fell under her spell. She was explaining her magic when suddenly a bullet hit her shoulder. She was surprised to see he could move and shoot even under her spell. She asked how he could do it since she was sure she had enchanted him. He shot her again in the abdomen and she didn't understand what kind of weapon it was, since guns didn't exist in her world. Her defense couldn't keep up with him. He explained it was a gun and also said he had few bullets and didn't want to use them. She used her fire power, but only her robe was hit by the fire, and he was no longer there. The next second, he was standing right behind her with his gun pointed at her head. He said he knew she wasn't good at close combat and that her enslavement magic didn't work on him either. She was surprised and in denial. Kai had made a bet and won. The reason was Kensaki that night. When he asked Kensaki to dominate him, he explained that the skill that was cast first would have priority over the new skill, which meant that if she used her domination power on the first one, it would be nullified by the enslavement magic, and since the candidates had divine protection, their powers were superior to the magic. Kensaki was doubting. Since her ability was weaker than Leonora's magic, the same happened with Steady. Since he had cast his spell before her, therefore he could regain control over his monster. It was a gamble, but they had no other chance at that moment. Leonora realized it had to be Kensaki, and she was right since Kai was under her spell. He told her that this was her end and was about to shoot. Leonora was captured and handcuffed. The handcuffs sealed her magical power and were the same handcuffs that had been used previously on Kensaki. She asked Kai what he planned to do with her. His demand was simple. If she sent them back, he would release her. She apologized since it was impossible for her because all she could do was summon magic to send them back. A different magic was required. Kai knew she wasn't lying because she didn't have the skills to send them back. Then he asked her how she was supposed to send them back. After they defeated the Demon King, she explained that summoning required an immense amount of energy, so they depended on their god to summon them. In other words, it was the god who had summoned them. Once they defeated the Demon King, the god himself would send them back, but she didn't seem sure of her claim because no previous candidate had been sent back. This was because they had been killed by the Demon King. There might have been some survivors, but they disappeared after a short conversation. Kai was ready to kill her, but Sugi stopped him. Sugi told him he was only cooperating because he thought Leonora could send them back, but since she couldn't, he would like to keep his status as a hero candidate. He didn't want to become a traitor in that world. Kai asked if they weren't already traitors. Leonora assured him she would pretend nothing had happened. That night, Sugi said that the crime of killing a saint was serious and they could get into trouble for it. The other candidates also agreed with him. Narumi was still on Kai's side. Sugi agreed that killing her was the sensible thing. But what would they do after killing her? Kai understood Sugi's point of view. But in an unexpected twist of events, he shot Leonora right between the eyes. Everyone was surprised to see how Leonora's body fell to the ground. Kai used his smoke grenade and disappeared from there. The candidates were not happy with his decision, nor with his actions. Kensaki thought that actually, it all came down to what he had planned with her a few hours earlier. When Kai and Kensaki were planning, he had told her that the first objective was to capture Leonora and find a way to return home, but if that was impossible, he would kill her. He knew that if they captured her and couldn't return to their world, then Sugi would try to protect her. And at that moment, he would kill her and flee. He planned to carry the sin of killing the saint alone. He said that was the reason he left some of his guards alive, so they could blame him. He told her to put all the blame on him and return to the Empire. She wasn't sure she could do it, but he told her she could, and that she could even use her powers during the negotiation to make it work. She asked him where he would go to flee. He told her not to worry about him. Meanwhile, far away in a dark castle, a man was being updated on his failed attempt to kill the candidates. The Demon King. The Demon King told him not to worry, since in the end the hero candidates would definitely appear on the front line. The game was getting interesting, and the Demon King liked it. 2 days after the incident, Kai was living in the forest. He was near a city, and it would take him half a day on foot to get there. Since they wouldn't let him in after killing the saint, he decided to sneak in at night. He needed to earn some money and saw a tavern inside the tavern. There was a charming atmosphere, and someone asked him where he was from. He lied, saying he was from a nearby village and was now looking for work. The man advised him to become an adventurer. He would have to take jobs from the guild and he would be paid for it. He also told him that the guild urgently needed new adventurers, so they wouldn't even ask for identification. He stayed at an inn, and fortunately, no one recognized him there. Then he went to the guild of the village and saw all kinds of people. He went to the reception desk and registered. They asked for his name, age, and origin, so he used Siren as his false name and lied, saying that the Demon King's army had destroyed his village. Siren was the same code name he used in the real world. The receptionist explained how the guild worked. There were ranks from A to F. The higher the rank, the greater the reward. Since he was new, they registered him as an F-rank adventurer. Then he went to the bulletin board to take his first mission, and soon 3 boys came to bother him. They were mocking him, and Kai didn't like it at all. They asked him not to take the mission, but Kai calmly turned around, thanked them for the warning, and asked them to leave him alone. Upon hearing this, the boys got frustrated, thinking Kai was very arrogant. Seeing that they surrounded him, people murmured that those boys were looking for a fight with a beginner again. Then one of the boys tried to attack Kai, shouting that he needed a lesson, but to his surprise, Kai blocked the attack by grabbing his hand. The boy was surprised and shouted at Kai to let go. Kai calmly released it since he didn't want to fight. However, the boy told his companions to attack Kai together and teach him a lesson. They all tried to attack him at the same time, but Kai defeated them, easily and calmly left the guild. As he walked away, he thought to himself that at least now he knew the level of average adventurers in the guild. Compared to hero candidates, they were surprisingly very weak, so he decided to finish the mission as quickly as possible. The scene then moved to the forest, where Kai thought that according to the mission information, the kobolds should be nearby. Suddenly, he noticed animal tracks on the ground. Kayla followed them, and as he advanced, he felt that there was someone near him and that it wasn't just one person. He also noticed that the mysterious creatures were quite good at hiding, which made him suspect they were kobolds. Suddenly, a kobold appeared from behind and launched a surprise attack, but Kai sensed it and easily dodged. He also noticed that the kobold was carrying a human sword in his hand, which meant that he had probably defeated an adventurer. While thinking about this, another kobold appeared from behind and tried to attack him. This time, Kai dodged and picked up some dust from the ground, throwing it into the kobold's eyes. While the second kobold was blinded, Kai hit the first kobold in the face. As he fell to the ground, he took the sword and quickly finished him off. Seeing this, the second kobold was shocked, but before he could react, Kai attacked him and quickly eliminated him with a knife. Then Kai used his judgment skill to check the kobold's stats and realized that these creatures did not pose a threat to him. Feeling confident, he decided he could easily hunt them to earn more money. After a while, the scene changed to the guild, where everyone was looking at Kai surprised. Kai had brought the kobold's ears as proof of his subjugation. He asked Mia, the receptionist, if it was enough. She answered affirmatively and asked if he was sure he had really done it. Kai just answered yes, explaining that hunting kobolds was very easy, but finding them had been the challenging part. He reflected on how, although he had the skill to fight them, his exploration ability was still insufficient. Seeing Kai return after defeating the kobolds, The people around him were surprised and asked if hunting kobolds was such an easy task, speculating that Kai might have been a rank S hunter from another place. However, someone else mentioned that they had heard that Kai was still a beginner. Mia interrupted, asking Kai to wait, while she went inside to prepare his reward. The scene then shifted to night, where Kai was walking somewhere, counting his money, wondering how he could earn so much, hunting those weak magical beasts, realizing that for now, securing funds to live was more important, so he decided to stay in the city and earn money as an adventurer. Kai thought that building a network around the guild would help him gather information easily. Suddenly, someone appeared in front of Kai. Seeing the boy, Kai asked if he had something to do with him, noting that the boy seemed much stronger than those he had fought at the guild. The boy introduced himself as Lyle, a rank B adventurer and the person in charge of the guild branch in the city. Kai responded casually, asking, "So what?" Lyle then asked Kai if he was the same person who had caused trouble for his men earlier that day at the guild. Kai replied that those guys were the ones who started the altercation. Lyle, furious, shouted at Kai not to lie. Since he had heard that an unknown rookie had beaten his men, Kai admitted that yes, he was the one who defeated them. Upon hearing this, Lyle shouted that if that was the case, he wouldn't hesitate to teach Kai a lesson. Lyle then tried to hit Kai several times, but to his frustration, Kai easily dodged every attack. Finally, Kai got tired and used his legs to trip Lyle, causing him to fall to the ground. Seeing this, Lyle was stunned and exclaimed. Kai then told Lyle that his speed was impressive but unrefined, and that his movements were too large, leaving openings. Upon hearing this, Lyle got furious and tried to attack again, demanding to know what Kai had said. Kai once again blocked his attack by grabbing his hand, and then quickly slammed him to the ground. Kai explained that he believed Lyle was not used to fighting humans because his missions normally involved magical beasts. In response, Lily angrily asked why Kai had attacked his men if he had so much power. Kai replied that he had already explained it was a misunderstanding and offered to clarify everything from the beginning. Sometime later, the scene changed to the guild where Lyle apologized to Kai, admitting it was his fault. Lyle even scolded and punished his own men for lying to him. Recognizing that it was his fault for not doubting their words, he yelled at his men, demanding they apologize to Kai. They reluctantly apologized to Kai after Lyle insisted. Kai replied that as long as the misunderstanding was resolved, he didn't mind. Then he mentioned he had a question to ask. Lyle apologized again and assured Kai he would gladly answer any question he had. Kai explained that he was a traveler and had registered as an adventurer to earn funds for his travels. Kai continued mentioning that he had another reason for registering as an adventurer. Curious, Lyle asked Kai what he wanted. Considering his formidable power and unknown circumstances, Kai replied that he was looking for a way to travel to another world. Upon hearing this, Lyle and his men were surprised and asked him to clarify, wondering if such a thing was possible. One of them speculated that they had heard that hero candidates came from another world. Kai confirmed that indeed, he was talking about finding a method to enter the world of those hero candidates. Lily responded, speculating that if that was the case, it probably involved magic and that they were not particularly familiar with magic. Kai acknowledged that this information would not be easy to obtain and expressed hope that Lyle and her group might have some clue. Lyle replied that possibly there was only one person who could provide clues, the sage, the bankerat. Kai asked confused who the bankerat was. Lyle was surprised and asked Kai how he didn't know, explaining that the bankerat was an elf whose recommendation had greatly helped the country. Upon hearing this, Kai recalled having heard about the bankerat somewhere and asked if that was true. Kai then remembered having read about a wise elf in books before. Recalling that elves were known to live deep in the forests, he explained that elves were now rare with their stories, considered legends, and they rarely left their forests to explore the outside world. Kai concluded that the elf who ventured outside his forest and gained wisdom was known as a sage. Lyle added that she had heard the bankerat had been alive for over 100 years and was recognized for possessing great wisdom and knowledge. Lyle also mentioned that the bankerat was a renowned sorcerer with extensive knowledge of spells. Upon hearing this, Kai wondered if elves were known for their strong affinity with spirits, which helped them master magic. Kai also considered that even if there was no specific magic to send heroes back to their world, maybe with spells they could achieve it. Lyle's subordinate Roka interrupted, asking if the sage, the bankerat, was still alive, mentioning that he had never heard of the bankerat and pointing out that no one had ever seen the bankerat. Lyle laughed and replied that she had no information about that, then apologized to Kai for not having provided any useful information. Kai reassured her, saying the information was really helpful to him. Kai then mentioned that it was getting late, so he was heading back to the inn. Upon hearing this, Lily expressed curiosity and asked Kai what he planned to do after discovering a way to travel to another world. Kai smiled and responded cryptically that he would leave that to their imagination. Confused, they watched Kai walk away toward the inn. The scene then changed to a week later at the guild, where Mia was giving Kai his reward for completing the mission after receiving the reward and leaving the guild. Kai reflected on how a week had already passed since the incident with Lile and her group during that time. He had managed to save some money. Suddenly, Lila and Roka approached Kai and asked if he had completed his mission, suggesting they go have a drink together. Kai responded with a strange, somewhat sad look and declined their invitation upon seeing this. Lily commented that Kai was very boring, and they said goodbye as they walked down the road. Kai reflected on how he had finally gathered some information about the sage, shared that the sage's name was the Bananeret, and that about a decade ago the Banaheret had served as an advisor to the country, now retired. It was said he lived near the western border, the place where the country was fighting against the Demon King's army. Kai then concluded that there was no reason to stay longer in the city, deciding he should go visit the so-called sage Elvin Orit. The scene then changed to the sacred temple city Alpha, where the hero candidates were having a meeting with someone. Heinrich, the captain of the 8th Corps of the Holy Knight's Sword, mentioned that it had been a month since he took responsibility for overseeing the hero candidates, replacing the functions of the fallen Saint Fred. Then Heinrich asked Midutsugi if he had any complaints so far. Midutsugi replied, no, indicating that everything was fine because Heinrich was doing a good job. Heinrich expressed his happiness upon hearing those words, stating that the hero candidates were valuable assets to the country and that he treated them with the appropriate respect. Azumoto thanked Heinrich for his concern but couldn't help feeling that he was different from Leonora. Despite this, he sensed something suspicious about the situation. Heinrich then directed them to focus on the main topic, mentioning that in the meeting the previous day, it had been decided to mobilize the candidates to hero. Iduzugi was surprised and asked if he had understood correctly that they would be sent to the front. Heinrich responded affirmatively, confirming that indeed the hero candidates would be sent to the battlefront. He explained that there were still battles on the western border. Heinrich then showed them a map and explained that they would be mobilized to a strong point on the front line. Mitsugi responded that he understood and was about to ask about the promise, but Heinrich interrupted him, stating that he would keep his promise to protect those who were not fit for combat. Miduzugi sincerely thanked Heinrich for his assurance. Heinrich then explained that he would assign them some tasks, emphasizing the need for everyone to contribute to earn their place. Miduzugi agreed, seeing the practical benefits of working. Asimoto asked when they should depart, to which Heinrich responded urgently, suggesting they leave the next morning. He also asked Midusuji to inform everyone and ensure that they were prepared for the journey. After leaving the hall, while Midusuji and Azumoto Marai walked back, Azumoto Marai expressed relief that Heinrich had accepted their request. Yuzuki agreed, admitting that at first he feared their demands were too much, but was glad everything had worked out in the end. Ashimoto Marai speculated that the knights lacked confidence in controlling the hero candidates without Leonora, which might explain their more modest attitude. Midusugi agreed, pointing out that with Leonora gone, the knights would be on high alert. Then Asimoto Marai wondered about Kai, thinking about where he might have gone and what he was doing at that moment. The scene shifted to the past when Leonora was killed. Kai left the hero candidates. The bishop asked tensely who could have killed Leonora. Nagasena responded that the culprit had been Kai, revealing that he was one of the hero candidates. Upon hearing this, the bishop and his guards were shocked. The bishop urgently asked where Kai was. Nagasena replied that Kai had fled, noting that he was surprisingly fast for a traitor. The guards began to argue among themselves, debating whether to send an inquisitor immediately if Kai's betrayal was confirmed, or if they should first verify whether Saint Leonora had really been killed. The bishop responded, explaining that he was not completely denying the story, but suggesting that there was a possibility that all the hero candidates had conspired together to eliminate Leonora. At that moment, Midusuji tensed up. To everyone's surprise, Leonora's knight stepped forward and explained that he had witnessed the incident, revealing that Miduzugi and the others who were there had actually tried to protect the saint, but were overwhelmed by Kai, resulting in Leonora's death. The other knight also agreed with the account, which led the bishop to say he could believe it if Leonora's own knights were confirming the story. He then asked about Kai's strength, questioning if he was really that formidable. Midusuji confirmed, saying yes, explaining that Kai had been hiding his true power all along. The bishop then invited them to have a more detailed conversation in his chamber, and requested that one of the hero candidates accompany him without them knowing. Kanzaki Ren and was secretly listening from behind a wall using his skills as a knight. Miduzuki felt relieved that they had managed to handle the situation with the help of Kanzaki Ren. The scene returned to the present where Asimoto Mara asked Midusuji if he was still worried about Kai, suggesting that it was useless to keep thinking about it. Midusuji smiled and nodded outwardly, but admitted that deep down he was still distressed, because he knew that Kai had sacrificed himself for them. Midusuji was tense because he had decided to protect everyone, but Kai had taken on that burden alone, leaving Midosuji feeling powerless to help him. In the room, Midosuji gathered everyone and announced that they had received the orders to mobilize to the front. He indicated that all personnel prepared for combat had to be ready to depart the next morning. Some of the guys became tense, facing the reality of a real battle. Nagase approached them and commented that it was too late to be afraid, reminding them that they had chosen voluntarily to join the combat group. Hoshiori asked if they were the only ones sent to the front. Midosugi answered that they would go along with the 8th Knights Corps, was under the command of Captain Heinrich. Kansaki asked Midosugi if there was any news about Kai. Midosugi explained that the temple had put a bounty on Kai's head and had dispatched a significant number of people to track him down. He added that there had been no news about his whereabouts. Upon hearing this, Kansaki visibly saddened. Midosugi was about to console her, but before he could, Nagasena shouted angrily that he didn't care if Arashi was a traitor or not. If he found him, he would burn him to ashes. Kansaki-rin, feeling deeply affected, wondered why Kai hadn't taken her with him. The scene then changed to the jungle, where all the hero candidates and knights along with the guards were traveling. As they advanced, Arasi Sanuk felt something and stopped. At that moment, Hanosori also shouted that she was tired and asked if they could take a break. Azumoto Mirai replied that they had just taken a lunch break, so it wasn't possible. It seemed they were going to walk until nightfall. Some of the guys wondered if something would happen, since they had been walking for the last 2 days without anything occurring. Arasi Sanuk asked everyone to stop, and they asked if something was wrong. Eris Sanuk replied that she could feel the presence of a magical beast behind the bushes. A knight arrived and shouted at the hero candidates, asking why they had suddenly stopped. Midosugi explained that they had felt the presence of a magical beast nearby. The knight shouted that he couldn't see anything and reminded them that they had to follow orders since they couldn't act without his permission. Upon hearing this, Arasizanuk got angry, grabbed the knight by the neck and demanded to know what he had said. The knight, scared and tense, asked Arasi Sanuk what she was doing. Even Midosugi asked Arasi Sanuk to stop. Arasi Sanuk shouted furiously, asking why she should follow orders from a useless knight. Suddenly, something attacked Eris and Sanuk, forcing her to release the knight to dodge it. It was a magical beast with a rabbit face but armed hands. The guards became tense and announced that it was a sharp rabbit, urging everyone to prepare for battle. But before the guards could act, the sharp rabbits launched themselves at them, knocking down their swords. One of the sharp rabbits looked furiously at a guard, ready to attack, but before it could harm him, a strong flame appeared out of nowhere and eliminated the sharp rabbit. It was Arakazanuk, who used his power to defeat the beast. The guard thanked Arasazanuk for saving him, but Arasazanuk told him to step aside and not get in his way. Arasazanuk then proceeded to easily defeat each of the sharp rabbits one by one. Arasazanuk then proceeded to easily defeat each of the sharp rabbits one by one. Some students were amazed to see Arasazanuk's power, as it was much more destructive than what they had seen before. But Arasazanuk was not satisfied. Feeling that his power was still not enough compared to Kai's, the scene then changed to a moment when Kai had pointed a gun at Leonora. Arasazanuk got furious seeing Kai once again. Actually, Arasazanuk was frustrated because from the beginning, Kai had not shown fear towards him, which indicated that Kai was definitely stronger. Kai's lack of reaction only reinforced this belief for Arasazanuk. Arasazanuk then shares that with the explosive power he had received, he thought he would be stronger, but found it very annoying. To realize that Kai is even more powerful, the scene then changes to the present, where Midosugi interrupts Ararizanu's thoughts, asking him what's wrong since he seemed to be in a bad mood. Ararizanu responds that it's nothing, but he doesn't like taking orders from someone he considers useless. Sometime later, the scene moves to the western border of the sacred kingdom of Dagest at Fort Cruz. Initially, Captain Amelia of the Holy Knights is introduced as the leader of the Knights Order. Stationed there, and Rich asks Amelia what happened to the captain of the Sentinels. Amelia replies that he died about a week ago. Upon hearing this, the hero candidates were a bit surprised. Amelia then mentions that she wanted to let them rest first after their long journey, but she couldn't finish her sentence. The guards interrupt, shouting that the Demon King's army is approaching to attack. Amelia cheerfully comments that as everyone heard, there is no time to rest, so she counts on them. Midosugi agrees and instructs all the hero candidates to prepare for battle, which Ararizanuuk shows very determined and ready for the upcoming fight. The guards ring the alarm bell, shouting that the demon army is approaching. The number of monsters was huge, which left Midosugi surprised and wondering why there were so many. Enrich orders the guards to start shooting to reduce the number of monsters before they get closer. The guards start shooting arrows while the knights with fire abilities also launch fireballs. Despite all the impacts of arrows and fire, the monsters kept advancing, proclaiming their intention to destroy humans. Midosugi is surprised to see that the monsters do not retreat despite receiving heavy attacks. Amelia explains that the monsters would not be easily defeated with just those attacks. She warned the hero candidates not to underestimate the monsters' endurance and energy, emphasizing that humans were much weaker. In comparison, Mitsugi asks tensely Amelia what they should do. Amelia instructs Mitsugi to follow Enrich's orders and commands and states that she herself will lead the Fourth Knight's order to fight the monsters. Enrich explains that he had thought to say the same, but that some people were already down fighting the monsters. Mitsugi, confused, asks Enrich who he was referring to. Nagasrina informs Mitsugi that Enrich was referring to Arashi Sanuki and his group since they had gone down earlier. Mitsugi is stunned and asks Nagasrina to repeat what she just said. When the smoke cleared, they saw that the humans had come to confront them directly. The monsters laughed at Arashi Sanuki, the others, mocking them as fools who came to meet their death. Arasazanuk responded that he didn't care if they were demons or anything else. He would simply erase the monsters from existence. The battle began inside the fort. Some monsters broke a wall and attacked the guards. Just as a monster was about to hit a guard, Mitsugi intervened, blocking the attack with his sword. Even the guard was surprised to see Mitsugi. Mitsugi then unleashed his most powerful attack, extending his sword, and quickly defeated the monster. After that, Mitsugi felt confident, realizing that his power kept growing. He then shouted and told the others that they could see it was a battle, that they could win, so without fear of fighting. Upon hearing this, each hero candidate was filled with enthusiasm for the fight. While Mitsugi prepared to fight again, he reminded himself not to hesitate, knowing that any sign of hesitation could affect the rest of the team. Since he was their leader, he reflected on how Kyle taught the cost of his naivety. Azumoto also encouraged everyone to stop watching and join Mitsuki in the battle. Nagasa began using his attacks, and Kenzaki started dominating the monsters. Thus, the battle continued between the monsters and the hero candidates. Seeing the candidates fight, the guards were amazed by their power. Upon dominating the Demon King's army, Enrich shouted and instructed the guards to cover the candidates so they could push back. The guards agreed and charged forward, participating in a long battle until they finally defeated the Demon King's army. Amelia joyfully announced the victory, and the guards began to celebrate. As dusk approached, Mitsuki remained deep in thought, but was interrupted by Enrich, who asked if it was his first time fighting in that way, and what he thought about it. Mitsugi replied that it was a challenge, learning to handle battles on such a large scale. He explained that during the fight his vision had narrowed, making it difficult to give orders effectively. Enrique praised Mitsugi's effort and credited the candidates for their role in the victory, although he warned them to stay vigilant. Even though they faced mid-level enemies in relatively small numbers, high-ranking demons would represent a much greater challenge due to their superior abilities. Upon hearing Enrique's warning, Mitsugi became serious and assured him he would remember it. The scene then changed to the demon lair, where a monster was reporting about the battle to Stone Gaia, one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. The monster apologized for not fulfilling his duties, which enraged Stone Gaia greatly. The scene changed again, this time to the Great Eot Forest, where Kai was traveling. As he approached the edge of the forest, he reflected that his journey to visit the sage would soon come to an end. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Kai felt something coming toward him. Tongues pointed directly to strike him. He managed to dodge them as best he could, noticing their incredible speed, and wondered what kind of tongues those were. Looking more closely, Kai spotted new magical beasts. Upon analyzing them, his system identified them as baboon tongues. Checking their status, Kai concluded they were moderately mediocre creatures. The baboon tongues attacked Kai again, but he easily dodged their assault. However, realizing they were approaching quickly, Kai showed his agility by quickly jumping to avoid the attacks. The baboons tried to hit him again with their tongues, but this time Kai drew his knife and cut one of the tongues in half. The baboons were stunned by this maneuver, and Kai continued, cutting until completely severing the tongues from their mouths. One of the baboons tried to attack with its tail, but was too slow for Kai, who easily dodged it and quickly defeated the creature. Witnessing this, the other baboons froze and tensed, not knowing what to do. Now furious, he challenged them, asking if they were coming at him, or if he would have to go himself and deliver their fate. The scene changed again to a moment later. With the bodies of the baboon tongues lying on the ground, Kai reflected that more powerful magical beasts seemed to be gradually appearing. He wondered if it was because he was approaching the Demon King's territory, or perhaps because the forest was far from the cities where knights and adventurers were abundant. As he ventured further, Kai thought that the further he advanced, the greater the probability of encountering powerful magical beasts that had never been touched by humans. He was grateful that his evaluation skill allowed him to detect some of those beasts, so he decided to remain in constant vigilance. In the future, the scene changed again some time later, when Kai finally arrived at Mount Uranus, a natural barrier, the defensive that slowed the invasion of the Demon King's army. Kai explained that the highest peak was called Blinding Wolf Mountain, and that there was a rumor that the sage Owl lived at the top of that mountain. Then he tried to remember if it was true that there should be a small village at the foot of said mountain. When Kai arrived at the village, he was surprised to see it completely in flames. He wondered if the village had been attacked by the Demon King's army. As he suspected, it had indeed been attacked. There were monsters stationed in the village, and Kai watched them from the roof of a house, hidden from their sight. He thought that place was supposed to be very far from the front lines, so he decided to be even more cautious. The monsters asked their leader, named Hector, what they should do, suggesting that a massacre of humans would be acceptable. Hector ordered them to cease the massacre and proposed enslaving the humans instead. Then he asked if they had gathered any information about the Anaret. One of the monsters confirmed that the sage resided at the top of Blinding Wolf Mountain. Upon hearing this, Hector became frustrated to see that his information was correct, which annoyed him greatly. He emphasized that his top priority was the Anaret, the sage. Hector instructed the monsters to rest in the village that night and prepare to climb Blinding Wolf Mountain the next day. One of the monsters, visibly tense, expressed his concern, mentioning that Blinding Wolf Mountain is known as the nest of the blinding wolves, wild and untamable beasts. They believed that unless they defeated those blinding wolves, they could not reach their objective. Another monster asked why they thought that. The first explained that domination magic is ineffective against magical beasts with high intelligence. He had also heard that one of the 4 celestial kings managed to tame a dragon, but it would be impossible to do the same with the blinding wolves. Hector also mentioned that he was not particularly skilled with magic, so talking about abilities they did not possess was useless. Their only viable option was to defeat the untamable magical beast. The other monsters agreed with Hector's assessment. Seeing this, Kai concluded that the entire group was well organized under Hector's command and wondered if that organization was due to the influence of a high-ranking demon. When Kai checked Hector's status, he discovered that he was one of the few high-ranking demons in the Demon King's army. Realizing this, he understood that facing Hector directly in combat would be extremely difficult. Suddenly, Hector also felt that someone was watching them, so he ordered one of the monsters to go investigate. Kai was surprised to see that Hector's senses were remarkably sharp. The monsters began searching for Kai, but he felt relieved because he was very skilled at hiding and moving undetected. Then Kai noticed that some humans had been captured by the monsters. All were tied up with ropes. Despite seeing the captive villagers, Kai decided not to intervene since his main goal, like that of the demons, was to find and meet the sage Aelin Orit. He knew he had to climb the mountain before the Demon King's army. The scene then changed to the summit of Mount Yarugo, a dangerous area also known as Blinding Wolf Mountain. Kai somehow had managed to climb to that point. When he checked the map, he had managed to climb up to that point when he checked the map. It showed no established path, so he decided to follow the trails used by wild beasts. He also noticed that his vision was blurry and the terrain seemed unstable. Despite being in a hurry, he chose to proceed cautiously. As he fell deeper, he felt the presence of someone nearby and thought it might be the rumored wolves of Wolf Mountain. Blinding, sharpening his hearing, he distinguished not one but two, no, 3 distinct sounds that gradually increased in number. Kai realized that although the wolves were hidden, their presence was overwhelming. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Kai found himself surrounded by wolves on all sides. They were about to attack him, but he quickly jumped and landed on a nearby tree. Kai was shocked to discover the reason why many people had disappeared on that mountain. Then he used his evaluation skill to analyze the condition of the key of the Kalas, the wolves. Upon inspecting them, he found their condition was average, but their true strength lay in their coordination. While Kai was evaluating their stats, one of the wolves charged at the tree and split it in half. Kai knew he had to act fast, so he took a leaf, infused it with mana, and used it to attack the wolves. In seconds, the wolf died after being cut in 2. More wolves tried to attack him, but each time Kai used the leaf to knock them down. He eliminated 2 more in the same way. Now a group of 5 or 6 wolves was approaching to attack together. So this time, Kai infused mana into his own body. He believed that if he did it consciously, the effect would be significant. He thought this because Leonora had mentioned that those who relied on divine protection often had weak control over their mana energy. In his opinion, they were nothing but weaklings, which was why she could control them all. That was why they couldn't resist Leonora's enslavement magic. Back then, Kai knew he had to improve to overcome his weakness. He believed that mastering mana control would also increase his resistance against enemy magic. He also realized that mana was not as powerful as divine protection, but if he wanted to become stronger in this new world, he had to learn to use it. Kai decided to keep fighting the wolves and practice mana control. While climbing the mountain, suddenly Kai felt something and quickly headed to that place. He went straight to the leader of the wolves and upon arrival asked him to confirm something. The other wolves were confused about what Kai was trying to do, but when the leader tried to attack him, Kai defended himself quickly and defeated him without hesitation. When Kai looked up, he noticed that as soon as he defeated the leader, all the wolves fled. After all, he was the strongest magical beast in his pack. After that, Kai chased the remaining wolves alone. Suddenly, to his surprise, something special happened. He saw a reddish copy of the wolves. Seeing this, Kai wondered if his skill was predicting the movement trajectory of the wolves. His assumption turned out to be correct. Indeed, it was predicting future trajectories. With this skill, he quickly defeated 2 more wolves. Kai realized that with his predictive ability, he could see about 1 second into the future. Realizing this, the remaining wolves got scared. However, Kai told them not to dare to run away and instead join him to train a little more. After a while, Kai had eliminated all the wolves. Upon checking his own status, he discovered that his new skill, Divine Protection of Clairvoyance, helped him see the future movements of his enemies. Then he reflected on how, when he received the skill to detect weak points, his evaluation skill also leveled up. This progression essentially improved his blessings from normal to enhanced, as now his evaluation allowed him to see everything around him. Exhausted, Kai decided to rest a bit. Suddenly, he felt something and wondered if the Demon King's army had arrived. He abandoned his plan to rest and hurried toward the source of the presence he had felt. The scene changed near the mountain's summit, where some monsters had captured an elf girl named May. Hector expressed his admiration for her persistence, noting that it was to be expected from a disciple of the sage. Then he declared that this would be her end and ordered his monsters to eliminate the elf girl May. She was about to say something when she was suddenly attacked by the monster. To everyone's surprise, Kai arrived quickly and helped her dodge the attack. Carrying her in his arms, May was stunned to see a human save her, confused. The monster asked Kai who he was, if he was a new enemy. Kai understood that there were a total of 10 monsters, with their leader Hector being a high-ranking demon. May asked Kai why he had helped her. Kai responded by asking if she was a disciple of the sage, Leonora. When May confirmed she was, Kai explained that his reason for helping her was because he had some matters with the sage Leonora. Kai used his evaluation skill on May and discovered that she was half-elf. He also found out that she had spellcasting ability is dude within her skill set. Hector commented that he did not need to ask who the human was, but he was sure that Kai was definitely an enemy. He ordered his monsters to kill both the elf and the human. Kai realized that to save the girl and earn a favor from the sage, he had to defeat those monsters. The monsters attacked Kai, and with the help of his foresight skill, he tried to predict their future movements. His foresight skill proved invaluable, as Kai could predict the monsters' future moves, which allowed him to effectively block their attacks. The monsters were surprised, and with a quick move, Kai dispatched them all with his knife. The other monsters were stunned witnessing the scene. Kai reflected that as long as his foresight was active in combat, he felt invincible in close combat. However, his main concern was the duration of the skill and how many minutes he had left. On the other hand, Hector instructed his monsters not to attack recklessly, but to use magic to attack the human. The monsters agreed and began firing magic bullets at Kai. Seeing the magic bullets, Kai tensed, realizing the danger they posed. However, to his relief, May used a wind spirit spell, Sill, and cleared all the bullets. Kai, surprised, asked if it was a spell, realizing the power used by borrowing the strength of the spirits, an art reserved for elves. May confirmed it and thanked him, mentioning that thanks to him the spirit seemed able to rest a bit. Frustrated, Hector declared that they would not win that way and decided to join the fight himself. Kai became serious and asked May, referring to her as Elf, to prevent the rest of the monsters from interfering while he dealt with their leader. May responded that she could handle it and asked Kai to stop calling her Elf, since her name was May. Kai accepted her request and expressed his confidence in her, addressing her as the disciple of the sage. Mai got angry and shouted that her name was Mai, but soon got frustrated and asked Kai to forget what she said. Here, Kai faced Hector head-on, only to discover that Hector was very strong. Despite clashing swords, Kai used Hector's sword to propel himself into the air and attacked Hector with his knives. However, Hector blocked the attack with his own sword. Hector then counterattacked, but Kai dodged quickly and managed to cut him with his knife. Hector took some damage and admitted he was surprised that Kai had predicted his attack, considering it a good try. Kai, on the other hand, was surprised to see that the wound was not superficial. He tensed, realizing the power of a high-ranking demon, and understood that he would probably be dead without his foresight skill. Hector commented that if Kai were not human, he would have been able to defeat him easily. Then he used his evaluation skill to check Hector's status and discovered that besides his abilities, physical and sharp senses as a high-ranking demon, Hector also possessed a level 5 fencing skill. Kai, realizing he was at a disadvantage, in a direct fight with Hector despite his foresight ability, decided to try a new strategy. Hector shouted at Kai that if Kai wasn't going to come to him, then he would go fight. Despite this, Kai somehow managed to dodge Hector's attack finally. Kai received a cut on his hand from Hector's attack, leaving him tense. He realized there was no point in predicting the future if his body couldn't keep up, since the physical gap between them was too large for him to close. Hector laughed and mocked Kai, asking if he was just going to run away all of a sudden. Kai pulled out his gun and shot at Hector, but Hector easily blocked the bullets with his reflexes, using his hand. Kai saw that, and although he felt relieved that the bullets had penetrated Hector's hand and injured him, Hector was stunned and shouted, demanding to know what kind of device he was using. Kai, a device so blatant. Furious Hector attacked Kai, who was prepared to shoot with his gun. However, Hector managed to dodge the bullets and warned Kai not to underestimate him, as he could easily predict the trajectory of the bullets. Kai ran out of bullets, so he threw knives at Hector, who blocked them with his sword. Suddenly, to Hector's surprise, Kai threw a bomb at him. Hector wondered what it was and lunged at Kai to attack him, but before he could reach him, the bomb exploded, leaving the other monster surprised. Even Maize was surprised to see it and wondered who Kai really was, since he showed such incredible skills. She noticed that Kai was dominating a high-ranking demon despite being human. On the other hand, Kai was ready with a knife in hand, realizing he no longer had ammunition in the gun he kept, and that the grenade had been his last resort. Seeing Hector getting up again, Kai realized that relying on guns and grenades would not be enough to defeat him. Hector was now furious because Kai was using unknown devices in their fight. Hector attacked furiously at Kai, who dodged the attack. During the assault, at that moment, Kai decided to activate his weak point detection ability, but first needed to carefully analyze Hector's movements. While Hector prepared to attack, Kai analyzed the future trajectory of the attack and identified its weak point, the neck. Kai positioned himself in advance with his knife ready at that spot. Hector advanced unaware, driving himself directly into Kai's knife, which struck his neck. Hector was surprised, wondering how Kai had managed to wound him with such precision. Kai recognized that weak point detection was a powerful ability, but it quickly drained mana. He felt sudden fatigue and sat down on the ground. Kai tensed, realizing he had exhausted his mana, which was bad news for him. The monsters also noticed that their leader Hector was dead, but seeing that Kai was exhausted, they decided to attack him. Mei also tensed because her spirits were drained and she wanted to help Kai at least to repay the favor for saving her. While the monsters charged at Kai, suddenly someone cast a fire spell, engulfing the entire group of monsters in flames and finishing them off. Kai noticed that the power of the fire flames was on another level compared to Nagasria's. Suddenly, a voice came from Mei's side, apologizing for being late. Mei was glad to see her and greeted her as master. Upon hearing this, Kai realized it was the sage Albanacat he had been looking for, and it was not a man but a female elf. Albanacat thanked Kai, recognizing that he seemed to have been trying to help her disciple. Given the situation, Kai responded that it had just been a coincidence, and asked if she was the great sage Elvanacat. Elvanacat confirmed with a yes and added that compared to before, now she was only old and fragile. Kai tried to use his evaluation skill, but his mana was too low. Still, Kai knew that the sage Elvanacat was very strong and that he could never defeat her, so he thought it made no sense to hide anything from her, and he should be honest with her. Elvanacat asked Kai if he had any business with her, and he answered affirmatively. Elvanacat said there was no reason for anyone to approach her without a purpose, and thanked him for saving her disciple, promising to do everything possible to answer his questions. Then Mei asked Elvana if they should return home, since the area was full of blood and wolves could appear soon. Elvana agreed with Mei and asked Kai to accompany them, saying that she also needed to rest. Kai accepted, and while walking with them, he thought that so far the situation was favorable and that helping the disciple was worth it. The scene then shifted to some time later, when Kai and the others arrived at Elvanacat's house. After entering, Mei said she was going to take a bath. Kai asked Elvana why she lived in such a remote place. Elvana responded that she had several reasons, but mainly because she wanted to return to nature. Even during her retirement, many people tried to take advantage of her there. She responded that she understood, since her house was not easy to visit. Elvanacat shared that sometimes people with abilities like hers came to her home, and that she was not an evil person who would reject those who sought her out. Kai told her directly that he was one of the hero candidates, tasked with the mission to subdue the Demon King. Elvana responded saying they were the third generation of hero candidates. She also mentioned that she had heard rumors but never expected that they had already been summoned. Upon hearing about the third generation, Kai was stunned and then recalled Leonora's words, which implied that several hero candidates had already been summoned before. Elvanacat mentioned that hero candidates had also been summoned about 4 years ago, which was their second summoning. The first summoning occurred about 10 years ago. She shared that both generations of hero candidates were sent to subdue the Demon King and were annihilated in the process. Since then, the summoning ritual had been sealed and should never be used again. However, Saint Leonora planned to break the taboo and summon the third generation. Elvana also said she opposed the idea because she believed it was reckless to entrust the fate of a country to someone from another world, regardless of whether it was a wish from the gods or not. Kai responded calmly that he had already dealt with Leonora, so they should not be able to perform another ritual to summon people from another world. Upon hearing this, El Vaniket found it hard to believe since she thought it was impossible that he had defeated Leonora. Kai smiled and replied that there are several ways to defeat someone even with a great gap in skill and power. Upon hearing this confidently, El Vaniket laughed and replied that it seemed true, but it was still amusing that Leonora had been defeated by her own piece. El Vaniket asked if she should say that Leonora reaped what she sowed. She also mentioned that she now understood Kai's desire since it was natural for someone to want to return home. Then she said she didn't like to talk too much, so she would get straight to the point. She couldn't send them back home with her spells. Upon hearing this, Kai was surprised and saddened. He asked if she still had any clue about how they could return home. El Vaniket shared that with human magic it should be possible to summon someone. Banquet shared that with human magic it should be possible to summon someone. But sending someone back was no longer feasible. That knowledge had been lost for centuries. Since there was no reason to investigate it further, Kai mentioned that Leonora had said the same and asked if in summary they had to defeat the Demon King, and there was no other option. Elvana replied that it was probably the case, or perhaps with the help of some demonic arts. It might be achievable to some extent. Upon hearing about the demonic arts, Kai said he supposed he would need to investigate that next. Elvaniket apologized for not being able to help him more and thanked him for saving his disciple. Promised that if he found anything useful, he would let him know. Kai thanked Elvaniket for his words. In response, Elvaniket smiled and suggested that maybe Kai might be able to defeat the Demon King. Kai replied that he didn't want to undertake such a troublesome task, but if there was no other option, he would have to defeat the Demon King. Seeing the anger and murderous intent on Kai's face, Elvaniket tensed and thought that Kai seemed different compared to the other hero candidates he had met so far. He felt that he had grown up in a dark and cold place. Finally, Kai thanked Elvaniket for his time and asked him to contact Siren from the Adventurers Guild if he found anything useful. Elvaniket decided to entrust Maya to him. Kai, just as May came out of the bathroom after her shower, suggested to Kai that he should also bathe, considering he must have gotten dirty. After climbing the mountain and the battle, Kai agreed with May, saying he thought she was right and decided to bathe. Elvaniket interrupted them and told Kai he had a suggestion. Kai asked what it was. Elvaniket then asked Kai why he hadn't brought his disciple on his journey. May was surprised and asked if by disciple Elvaniket meant her. The scene then shifted to the eastern region of the Demon Kingdom of Bora, the frontline battlefield with the Holy Kingdom of Direst, where Kai and May were heading toward a destination. It seemed that Kai had to take May with him on his journey. Kai praised the weather and mentioned he had heard that the weather in the demonic territory was harsh. May replied that the place where they were used to be territory of the Holy Kingdom until recently, and the severe weather should be even harsher. Further inside the Kingdom of Bora, Kai understood that the territory had been invaded by the Demon King's army. May also mentioned that around the western region of the Serrano mountain range there was a large city called Neutrat, and there should be villages around that city. She also mentioned that currently the city had fallen into the hands of the Demon King's army and had become the front line, which was their destination. She estimated it would take them about 2 days' walk to get there. Kai, doubtful, asked what had happened to the people living in those villages. May, sadly, replied that half of the population had been killed and the other half enslaved by demons to perform forced labor. Some people managed to escape to the other side of the mountain. Upon hearing May's account, Kai felt a lack of understanding and admired her knowledge, feeling that bringing her along on the journey had been the right decision. The scene then shifted to the past when Elvaniket asked Kai about bringing May on his journey. When Kai initially refused, May was surprised and shouted at him to at least consider it. Elvaniket began to laugh after hearing Kai's comment and advised him not to speak that way. He pointed out that for someone who had just arrived in this world, May would be quite useful due to her extensive knowledge passed down through generations. Elvaniket also mentioned that he had been looking for an opportunity to send May on a journey but was worried about sending his adorable disciple alone. Upon hearing this, Kai was confused and asked Elvaniket why he kept entrusting May since Elvaniket could have taken May himself. Elvaniket replied that he no longer had the capacity to undertake journeys on his own. Despite appearing young and healthy from a human perspective, his time and skills were limited. It was then when someone suddenly appeared and saved his disciple. May's life, he also expressed his gratitude, but he needed time to think before May could finish her sentence. Kayla interrupted and declared that she had planned to infiltrate demon territory, warning that it would be a dangerous journey. She emphasized that if May delayed him, she would leave her behind. Then the Vaniket approached May and reminded her that ultimately it was her decision, since it was her life, after all. May focused on the phrase her life and exclaimed that she understood, declaring that she was ready to go with Kai. The scene returns to the present, where Kai tensely commented that Mai seemed tired He reminded her that they still had a full day of walking ahead in case she hadn't noticed. Mai asked him not to expect too much from a spellcaster's body, since she had been training physically all along. Despite her magical focus, Kai suggested they end the day and rest. Upon hearing this, Mike was surprised and asked if he hadn't told her he would leave her behind if she delayed him. Kai asked what kind of nonsense she was saying, assuring her he wouldn't leave her behind for such a reason, then asked her to hurry and set up camp. May was impressed by his response and told him she understood that she would set it up in a few minutes. The scene then changed to night with Kai and May sitting around the campfire. May was eating and Kai watched her hesitantly, then mentioned that she had probably already understood, but that the journey would soon become dangerous and he wouldn't hesitate, even if the journey became dangerous, because he was determined to return to his world. However, he acknowledged that May might not have a convincing reason to accompany him so far. Kai then asked if it was correct to assume that the Vana was not lying, and that May had her own reasons for joining him. Mai responded that she didn't know how to explain it well, but that she had experienced loss. Her previous home, the Elven village, had been destroyed by the Demon King's army. Upon hearing this, Kai asked if the war was supposed to be between humans and monsters. Mai replied that those distinctions were trivial. Since demons overwhelmed all races, she explained that her father, mother, and even her little brother had been killed. She survived because her father sacrificed himself as bait to distract the monster's attention. She also recounted that during that time, she couldn't do anything to help, and that after the Demon King's army left the village, they left her for dead. It was then that the Vana found her and took her in, becoming her master and mentor. Kai said he wasn't interested in her past, he just wanted to know her goal. Mai responded that he should have deduced it from her story. The reason she became Elan's disciple, Cody's spellcaster, was to gain the power to defeat the monsters. Mai's eyes filled with fury and revenge as she declared that everything she had learned from her master in the last 10 years, including her training, had been to take revenge. She swore to annihilate, personally, the man who had killed her family with his own hands. Kai was surprised and asked the demon's name. May replied it was one of the 4 heavenly kings, Wimberg, known as the Heavenly King of Wind, and also one of the highest leaders in the Demon King's army. Kai then asked if the reason Maya agreed to join him was to get closer to Winder. He also mentioned that for now, he had no personal reason to fight the demons. Mike also mentioned that he didn't understand why the Vana had given permission after meeting Kai, since they were talking about their masters. He admitted he didn't know what the Vana was thinking, so he would follow Kai's instructions for the moment. Kai replied that he understood his situation, then recalled that the Ankit had asked him to take care of May, trusting that he could handle her. Kai then understood why the Banakarat had not allowed his disciple to travel alone. May could have risked her life chasing revenge aimlessly. May apologized to Kai for bringing up such a heavy topic and assured him not to worry, since she did not want to involve him in her quest for revenge. Kai understood that May was determined to seek her revenge on her own and asked her to end the conversation and go to sleep, since they would have to travel the next day. May agreed and mentioned that she would set spirits to watch over. These would alert them if any monster approached. While May slept peacefully, Kai reflected on the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. He watched May sleep calmly, then silently left the tent and reflected on how his previous enemy had been a high-ranking demon, and now he faced an even stronger one. He realized they needed to become stronger before facing such powerful enemies. Kai quickly decided to put those thoughts aside for now, recognizing that worrying about it was not productive at the moment. The scene shifted to the west corner of the Holy King's fortress, where the high officials were discussing that now, with the hero candidates, it was the right time to go on the offensive. Others agreed and asked where they should begin the attack. Amelia also commented that attacking the Eru fortress would be a good start. It used to be their fortress, so this was an opportunity to reclaim it, since it was currently their base on the front line. If we defeat them, the enemy will surely retreat, said Heinrich. He responded that it was a reckless plan, pointing out that so far they had been on the defensive, so why suddenly go on the offensive? The high official asked Heinrich what would happen even if those hero candidates were his subordinates. Amelia said Heinrich had a point, but the enemy might be underestimating them for now, so they would not expect a sudden offensive. Then she asked Midosuji if his body had been discovered. Midosuji answered affirmatively, adding that if told to fight, he would draw his sword. After that, Heinrich, Midosushi, and Azumotomar returned. Heinrich said the plan would be executed the next day and noted that it was rare for Amelia to be so aggressive. Azumotomar asked if he thought the plan would go well, observing that everyone was quite confident at that moment. Midozuki replied that if they were going to do it anyway, it was good to be on the offensive while the enemy was still reorganizing their forces, so he believed it was not a mistake. Heinrich responded that they were trusting too much in the power and abilities of the hero candidates, which made them overconfident. He also said that although they were only reinforcing their defenses outside their command, they could not disobey an order from their superiors. Azumoto asked tensely, "Didn't we have another choice?" Heinrich answered, "Of course not. I will still support as best I can, but the hero candidates remain the key to this operation, so please tell them to rest well." Suddenly, Midosuji tensed and wondered what was happening, as he suddenly had a bad feeling about it, but they had no other choice. The scene changed to the next day near the Aru's fortress, where the hero candidates and Heinrichs with his team were ready to attack the fortress. Nasarina asked why they were attacking at that hour, when it was already clear in morning. She questioned if a surprise attack would be more effective at night. Heinrich replied that demons could see clearly in the dark, so attacking at night could put them at a disadvantage. Midosugi mentioned that he wanted to confirm their objective of defeating the monster leader. While the main force distracted the monsters, he pointed out that the monster leader would probably be a high-ranking demon. Midosugi told the hero candidates that he would take the lead when the battle began and instructed them that if he was not nearby, they should buy him some time or retreat. Right then, a guard approached Heinrich and reported that there was a message from the main force, indicating that it was time to start the Cane-Rich operation. Heinrich instructed Midosugi and the others to attack without hesitation. Everyone attacked the fortress and stormed inside. Amelia shouted for everyone to annihilate the monsters without them knowing. Their actions were being observed by Stone Gaia, the king of the demon army. The scene then changed a few seconds later, where Heinrich and some of the candidates for heroes entered the main tower of the fortress. The monsters inside were stunned and tried to attack, but Midosugi eliminated them quickly in a matter of seconds. Heinrich warned Midosugi not to lower his guard since there was still a high possibility that the enemy leader was in the hallway. Suddenly, they were surrounded by monsters on both sides. Some hero candidates asked Midosugi what they should do. Heinrich then instructed Midosugi to leave his back to the 8th Night Order and advance toward his target. Midosugi agreed with Heinrich's plan and called Nyasa. Nyasa responded confidently that she didn't need Midosugi to tell her anything, since she knew her role was to eliminate the monsters in her way. She unleashed her power and the others quickly joined, defeating the monsters in front of them. Finally, when they opened the large door, they were stunned to see a humanoid figure. Sam asked tensely what the hell this was now. Arasizanoke also asked the Demon King if that figure was his leader. Estonia then revealed that he was one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. Kanzaki Renius and Moto Mirai tensed up upon hearing this. Midosugi also felt uncomfortable, realizing that the pressure emanating from Stone Gaia was far from normal. Stone Gaia drew his sword and challenged them to see who was stronger. Midosugi gave instructions to everyone to prepare, but deep down he was trying to gather his courage. He knew that if they were defeated by Stone Gaia, the sacrifices made by the main force would be in vain. So everyone was ready to fight, but instead of attacking, Stone Gaia sat down and touched the ground. Midosugi was confused, but to his surprise, an orange circle appeared around Stone Gaia. The hero candidates tensed up upon seeing it. The earth rose from the ground, summoning numerous golems that appeared before them, leaving the others surprised. Estonia then ordered the golems to attack and eliminate the hero candidates. Midosugi gave instructions to everyone to stop the golems. Narumi Josh responded affirmatively and began attacking with his nature power, knocking down golems with sharp leaves. Arasasanu also joined, piercing the golems with fire explosions. Arasasinu laughed and commented that it didn't matter how many golems there were. Those slow creatures were nothing to them. However, Stone Gaia then used his magic, causing the broken golems to regenerate their bodies. Seeing the golems regenerate, the hero candidates were surprised and wondered how it was possible. Despite that, they resumed the fight, knocking down the golems, only to see them regenerate again. There was a moment when Ra was about to be accidentally hit by a golem, but to his relief, Kanzaki Rin used her domination attack to take control of some golems. However, when another person tried to hit one of the golems, to their surprise, the golem still managed to counterattack Sumotamura and attacked furiously with his telekinesis, destroying the golems. But to his frustration, the golems began to regenerate again shortly after. Arashi Sanuki expressed his frustration, realizing that it seemed there was no end to the golem's regeneration at that moment. Narumi Yoshia recalled similar situations from mangas he had read before, where defeating the summoner used to be the best strategy in such cases. Narumi Yoshia suggested to Midosugi that they take care of the golems, and advised him to focus on confronting the main demon, King Mitsuzuki. He replied that he understood, and that he and Arasizanoke would take care of the summoner. They charged furiously towards Astasia to attack him. Estonia smiled and told the hero candidates who underestimated him. Estonia used magic again, summoning stones from the ground and throwing them at Mitsuzuki. Mitsuzuki tried tensely to dodge the attack by running, but to his surprise, the stones followed him wherever he moved. Midosugi he found himself unable to avoid the stones and was injured by them. Seeing this, everyone shouted his name, worried, but Mitsuzuki reassured them, saying he was fine, without Stone Gaia knowing this was actually a distraction by Mitsuzuki to allow Arashi Sonic to get close from behind for a surprise attack. They succeeded in their plan, and Arasizanoke managed to stealthily approach Stone Gaia and deliver a powerful blow with his full flame power. Everyone watched in anticipation, wondering if Arasiza had ever managed to defeat the Demon King. But when the smoke and dust cleared, it was revealed that Ararashi had not, collided with a wall made of dust and clay to everyone's surprise. The wall then attacked Ararashi Sansuki like a blow to his stomach, causing him to faint. Stone Gaia laughed mockingly and asked if that was all the hero candidates had. While the story took a brief pause, what do you think will happen next? Will Mitsuzuki and the others be able to defeat Stone Gaia, or will they all perish at his hands while Miru and the Part 3 group fought against one of the 4 heavenly kings, Stone Gaia? Our friend Kai arrived at the fallen city of Nut. Apparently, they had to take an unconventional route to escape the watchful eyes with only the light of a fire spell, at the front of a staff lighting the way. As they ventured deeper into the underground city, the mayor somehow convinced herself to go through the stinky sewer system of the city while holding her nose. Kai, however, paid no attention to the bad smell, had to admit that he would never have thought of infiltrating a fallen city through an underground sewer system. All he could ask for was that she be a little more patient, as they should reach their destination soon. They just had to be careful of the demon's excellent night vision, and the city was designed with many open areas. Plus, Nut is a frontline city, so security would be quite reinforced. After a few more minutes, walking through the city's excrement tunnel, they finally found their exit. Thus, the duo had successfully infiltrated unnoticed, although at the cost of smelling like excrement. As soon as they set foot in the city, Kai felt a bad premonition. His senses indicated someone was approaching, so they had to hide in a barrel, like in a 90 seconds cartoon. Moments later, 2 demon guards walked down the street, one of them complaining about being assigned as the witch's guard. However, the position of serving the witch was not granted based on personal achievements. The complainer maybe lacked motivation for it, but had the skills, which did not prevent him from being reprimanded by the witch. As the 2 demons walked away, chewing over the problems of their chain of command, Kai and the mayor emerged. Kai wondered what the deal was with this witch, since according to him she should be the demon princess and the new governor of the city of Nut. The mayor knew her as the space witch, and she would be their current target. Before leaving, the sage suggested to Kai the idea of meeting the witch who controlled space and lived elsewhere. The witch might be the only one who could fulfill her wish. Maybe they had managed to enter the city, but reaching the princess would require careful planning. To avoid a battle they could not afford, a veteran assassin would carefully gather more information while maintaining anonymity, and that was exactly what Kai had planned. The mayor swore not to stand in his way and to follow his orders to get out of this mess. The fallen city had officially become a demonic stronghold where they could organize and prepare for their next conquest. If you looked around, you would see demon soldiers living their lives, laughing with friends, drinking and getting drunk in the mid-afternoon, like degenerate humans using abandoned houses as their refuge. Kai and the mayor carefully took note of the current situation in the city. The mayor even found the lack of trouble disappointing, as they only observed demons living their normal lives. Kai believed that as long as a species could converse and possessed intelligence, they would live like humans. But Nut was not as peaceful as it seemed at first. Some of the original human residents had been turned into slaves to help the demons with logistics, and in their new homes,